So full disclosure, as somebody that's half Korean, half white, a lot of this story I kind of connected on a more visceral level. What was it about kind of exploring the story through that lens with Mizu?
Well, I too am, half white, half Asian, and that's something that, I've lived my life being caught between two worlds. And it's interesting because now, in our kids' classrooms, like you see so many people who are half Asian, half white, but when I was growing up, you didn't. So exploring that with Mizu, what it would have been like in a time where it was completely homogenous in Japan. It's heralded as the golden age of Japan, the Edo period, when the borders were completely shut to Western influence. And what would it have been like to walk around looking different like that? And just exploring that within myself of what I would have felt like then, and what the seedlings of anger metastasizing into rage, and kind of seeing the catharsis of mowing down a bunch of guys. So um but ultimately it's a story of self acceptance.
I mean, to that point, to the mowing down point, what you look at Lady Snowblood, you look at like Lone Wolf and Cub.
And
What do
we
you
looked at both. We
Yep.
looked at both quite a bit. Yeah.
what do you think it is about Edo Japan that just speaks so well to telling a good old-fashioned revenge story?
It was part of it. Like
Yeah.
revenge was sanctioned. You could go to the local magistrate and say, I need a duel with someone. Can I get the paperwork? You could
Right.
declare your intention of, it's almost like I challenge you to a duel was,
Right.
and
Somebody could say, like, what are you doing? Well, I'm on a revenge quest. So, and people understood, like, oh, okay,
well, but
good luck with
men
that.
could, yeah, a good,
Men could, right?
and whereas women couldn't even travel solo without a chaperone. So it's an interesting time.
You've also kind of inverted it. Speaking of chaperones, I mean, you've got someone as stoic and like single-minded as Mizu, but then you've got Ringo right there, right? Like the entire time. What was it about kind of like creating this odd couple across this kind of like cross-country trek across Japan?
I think just one of the most entertaining things to watch is a bear and then a finger poking the and that's really what it's but the surprise to find they have quite a bit to learn from each other. He knows instantly what he has to learn from Mizu, but she has no idea what he's going to bring to her life. He goes from irritant to albatross to necessary partner.
I love in these early episodes when like there's a sense of it's almost like LaFour's in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Like she's being pursued and it's by like a force. Like, how did you want to challenge Mizu with the antagonist in this? As she's kind of raising ire across the land of the rising sun.
You're just always looking like, how are we going to challenge her in new ways? Keep the downward pressure on. The beginning, we begin the story when Mizu is really announcing herself. She's gone public. The suggestion is she might have been doing this for a while, and we really only get to that later on when we unveil in episode 5, kind of when the story might have, what she's been doing in the intervening time. Some of it anyway. There's more to tell, but you're always thinking like, okay, how's that pressure? What's the pressure going to look like? Who's coming? So it's all right. So it's going to be some mercenaries, some bad mercenaries. We know she can kill guys in the tavern. We know she can kill students, but it isn't until episode 2 where you're like, how's she going to go up against professional killers? And it turns out that's only the start of the challenges ahead of her.
More than just kind of like a blood-soaked epic. I mean, there's also it's a love letter to Japan. I think of the fisherman sequence. I think of the festival sequence and everything. Like what kind of windows into this culture did you really want to spotlight and showcase to audiences that might not be aware of it?
When we did our research of the time, there's just such a rich culture. There's just so much that, I mean, it was hard to decide what we were going to use and not. And we knew that Mizu was going to have to go on this quest from town to town, and we needed to see the richness of the culture. We needed to have something to contrast the bloodshed and see some of the beauty that maybe she's not seeing because she's so single-minded.
Yeah.
On darkness. So we needed some beauty. We needed all of that, and just to sort of create a richness of the show, which I hope we did.
And to see things like, what are things that people don't know about? Like, so much when you see film or television set in that period, it is sort of, and I say this big in quotes, but like Japan's greatest hits. It's all the familiar tropes, images. And I'm sure we have what some people consider some of those, but we really want to see, like, what are things people have never seen before? And we just would find things in our reading or from our researchers that we're just like, wow, that would be amazing to see. I've never seen that.
How is it scripting the action? Because this is like, everybody has their own fighting style, and how they fight says so much about their personality. And so like, you've got this like really good dojo sequence that feels right out of like the Chinese Connection. Like, how was it writing, like scripting that action and kind of having it inform the story at the same time?
Well, we used a stunt choreographer for many of the most awesome fight sequences you see were by him. Sunny Sun, yes. And our supervising director, Jane Wu, was old friends with him, and she had this idea to do stunt choreography, and they recorded it. They got a team of people during the shutdown in China to film it, and then our animators animated off of that. But really, it's about the story, the beats, the emotional beats of the scene. And, Sunny Sun and Jane understood those beats, and then they just, worked magic around the emotional beats to create like the awesomeness that you see now.
I also, was struck by, the sex. I mean, sex in itself is a tool and a weapon in this show. Like, how did you want to portray kind of eroticism within the frameworks of the story?
Well, our number one rule was that every sex scene was going to be in service of the story or of the character. And we tried very hard to make sure that it was very true to who the character was or what their goals were. And, some of the scenes you see are tone setting, because we, culturally tone setting, in exploring the culture, there was this whole idea of, ukiyo-e, the woodblock prints. If you look at them, they're extremely erotic and extremely graphic. There wasn't the same amount of shame for sex that there was in the Western culture during that time. So we were trying to really capture something that, I don't know if you've seen this, but when Mizu goes and explores brothels, that she sees some of that. And it's also in service of making Mizu confront her own sexual identity. But really, it was about world building.
Audiences can check out this world Friday, November 3rd on Netflix. Guys, thanks for taking the time to talk to me about Blue Eye Samurai.
Thank you for talking to us.
What are you? I have a name.